Okay, hey everybody, it's Jen Fishburne again with welcome back to my show, Preterism Changes Everything. And we are in the middle of reading about Adam and Eve getting married. Apparently, they did not get married before the fall, at least according to the story in these books. So we're going to read about that a little bit more. I'm just picking up from where we left off yesterday. All right, chapter 71. Adam is troubled by the thought of marrying Eve. But when Adam heard these words from Satan, he sorrowed much because of his oath and of his promise, and said, "Shall I commit adultery with my flesh and my bones? And shall I sin against myself for God to destroy me and to blot me from off the face of the earth? Since, when at first I ate of the tree, he drove me out of the garden into this strange land, and deprived me of my bright nature, and brought death over me." Well, there's how we understand what the death of Adam was, right? If then, and we're going to go into that in more detail, but if then I should do this, he will cut off my life from the earth, and he will cast me into hell, and will plague me there a long time. But God never spoke the words that you have said. And you are not God's angels, and you weren't sent from him, but you are devils that have come to me under the false appearance of angels. Away from me, you cursed of God. Well, Adam's catching on now. Good for him. Then those devils fled from before Adam, and he and Eve got up and returned to the cave of treasures and went into it. Then Adam said to Eve, "If you saw what I did, don't tell anyone, for I sinned against God in swearing by his great name, and I have placed my hand another time into that of Satan." Eve then held her peace as Adam told her. Then Adam got up and spread his hands before God, beseeching and entreating him with tears to forgive him for what he had done. And Adam remained thus standing and praying 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate nor drank until he dropped down on the ground from hunger and thirst. And now we know why Jesus did this 40 days and 40 nights, right? So many connections. Then God sent his word to Adam, who raised him up from where he lay, and said to him, "O Adam, why have you sworn by my name? And why have you made agreement with Satan another time?" But Adam cried and said, "O God, forgive me, for I did this unwittingly, believing they were God's angels." And God forgave Adam, saying to him, "Beware of Satan." And he withdrew his word from Adam. Then Adam's heart was comforted, and he took Eve, and they went out of the cave to prepare some food for their bodies. But from that day Adam struggled in his mind about his marrying Eve, afraid that if he was to do it, God would be angry with him. Then Adam and Eve went to the river of water and sat on the bank, as people do when they enjoy themselves. But Satan was jealous of them and planned to destroy them again and again and again. All right, chapter 72. Adam's heart is set on fire. Satan appears as beautiful maidens. Then Satan and 10 from his hosts transformed themselves into maidens, unlike any others in the whole world for grace. They came up out of the river in presence of Adam and Eve, and they said among themselves, "Come, we will look at the faces of Adam and Eve, who are of the men on earth. How beautiful they are, and how different is their look from our own faces." Then they came to Adam and Eve and greeted them and stood wondering at them. Adam and Eve looked at them also and wondered at their beauty, and said, "Is there, then, under us another world with such beautiful creatures as these in it?" And those maidens said to Adam and Eve, "Yes, indeed, we are an abundant creation." Then Adam said to them, "But how do you multiply?" And they answered him, "We have husbands who have married us, and we bear them children who grow up, and who in their turn marry and are married, and also bear children, and thus we increase. And if so be, O Adam, you will not believe us, we will show you our husbands and our children." They then shouted over the river as if to call their husbands and their children, who came up from the river, men and children, and every man came to his wife, his children being with him. But when Adam and Eve saw them, they stood dumb and wondered at them. Then they said to Adam and Eve, "See all our husbands and our children? You should marry Eve, as we have married our husbands, so that you will have children as we have." This was a device of Satan to deceive Adam. Where did it go now? Satan also thought within himself, God at first commanded Adam concerning the fruit of the tree, saying to him, "Eat not of it, else of death you shall die." But Adam ate of it, and yet God did not kill him. He only decreed on him death, and plagues and trials, until the day he shall come out of his body. Now then, if I deceive him to do this thing, and to marry Eve without God's permission, God will kill him then. Therefore Satan worked this apparition before Adam and Eve, because he sought to kill him, and to make him disappear from off the face of the earth. Meanwhile, the fire of sin came over Adam, and he thought of committing sin. But he restrained himself, fearing that if he followed this advice of Satan, God would put him to death. Then Adam and Eve got up and prayed to God, while Satan and his hosts went down into the river, in the presence of Adam and Eve, to let them see that they were going back to their own world. Then Adam and Eve went back to the cave of treasures, as they usually did, about evening time. And they both got up and prayed to God that night. Adam remained standing in prayer, yet not knowing how to pray, by reason of the thoughts in his heart regarding his marrying Eve, and he continued so until morning. And when light came up, Adam said to Eve, "Get up, let us go below the mountain, where they brought us gold, and let us ask the Lord concerning this matter." Then Eve said, "What is that matter, O Adam?" And he answered her, "That I may request the Lord to inform me about marrying you. For I will not do it without his permission, or else he will make us perish, you and me. For those devils have set my heart on fire with thoughts of what they showed us in their sinful apparitions." Oh, Adam's getting smarter, isn't he? Then Eve said to Adam, "Why need we go below the mountain? Let us rather stand up and pray in our cave to God, to let us know whether this counsel is good or not." Then Adam rose up in prayer and said, "O God, you know that we transgressed against you, and from the moment we transgressed, we were stripped of our bright nature, and our body became brutish, requiring food and drink, and with animal desires. Command us, O God, not to give way to them without your permission, for fear that you will turn us into nothing. Because if you do not give us permission, we shall be overpowered, and follow that advice of Satan, and you will make us again perish. If not, then take our souls from us, and let us be rid of this animal lust. And if you give us no order respecting this thing, then sever Eve from me, and me from her, and place us each far away from the other. Then again, O God, if you separate us from each other, the devils will deceive us with their apparitions that resemble us, and destroy our hearts, and defile our thoughts towards each other. Yet if it is not each of us toward the other, it will, at all events, be through their appearance when the devils come to us in our likeness." Here Adam ended his prayer. Chapter 73, the marriage of Adam and Eve. Then God considered the words of Adam, that they were true, and that he could long await his order respecting the counsel of Satan. And God approved Adam in what he had thought concerning this, and in the prayer he had offered in his presence. And the word of God came to Adam and said to him, "O Adam, if only you had had this caution at first, before you came out of the garden into this land." We all have to learn things the hard way, don't we? After that, God sent his angel who had brought gold, and the angel who had brought incense, and the angel who had brought myrrh to Adam, that they should inform him respecting his marriage to Eve. Then those angels said to Adam, "Take the gold and give it to Eve as a wedding gift, and promise to marry her. Then give her some incense and myrrh as a present, and be you and she, one flesh." Adam obeyed the angels and took the gold and put it into Eve's bosom in her garment, and promised to marry her with his hand. Then the angels commanded Adam and Eve to get up and pray 40 days and 40 nights. And when that was done, then Adam was to have sexual intercourse with his wife, for then that would be an act, pure and undefiled, so that he would have children who would multiply and replenish the face of the earth. Wow, what if everyone did that in today's world? Fasted, prayed for 40 days and 40 nights before they considered getting married and having sex. Then both Adam and Eve received the words of the angels, and the angels departed from them. Then Adam and Eve began to fast and pray until the end of the 40 days. And then they had sexual intercourse as the angels had told them. And from the time Adam left the garden until he wedded Eve were 223 days, that is 7 months and 13 days. Thus was Satan's war with Adam defeated. Okay. Chapter 74, the birth of Cain and Luluwa, and why they received those names. And they lived on the earth working in order to keep their bodies in good health, and they continued so until the 9 months of Eve's pregnancy were over, and the time drew near when she must give birth. Then she said to Adam, "The signs placed in this cave since we left the garden indicate that this is a pure place, and we will be praying in it again sometime. It is not appropriate, then, that I should give birth in it. Let us instead go to the sheltering rock cave that was formed by the command of God, when Satan threw a big rock down on us in an attempt to kill us with it." Adam then took Eve to that cave. When the time came for her to give birth, she strained a lot. Adam felt sorry, and he was very worried about her because she was close to death, and the words of God to her were being fulfilled. "In suffering shall you bear a child, and in sorrow shall you bring forth a child." But when Adam saw the distress in which Eve was, he got up and prayed to God and said, "O Lord, look at me with the eye of your mercy and bring her out of her distress." Then God looked at his maidservant Eve and delivered her, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and with him a daughter. So, twins. Then Adam rejoiced at Eve's deliverance, and also over the children she had borne him. And Adam ministered to Eve in the cave until the end of 8 days, when they named the son Cain and the daughter Luluwa. The meaning of Cain is hater, because he hated his sister in their mother's womb before they came out of it. Therefore Adam named him Cain. But Luluwa means beautiful, because she was more beautiful than her mother. Then Adam and Eve waited until Cain and his sister were 40 days old, when Adam said to Eve, "We will make an offering and offer it up in behalf of the children." And Eve said, "We will make one offering for the firstborn son, and later we shall make one for the daughter." And if you know anything about the offerings that they made for the children, you'll see that there were different time periods for boys and girls, and this is where it's coming from, apparently. All right, chapter 75. The family revisits the Cave of Treasures, birth of Abel and Achliah. Then Adam prepared an offering, and he and Eve offered it up for their children and brought it to the altar they had built at first. And Adam offered up the offering and asked God to accept his offering. Then God accepted Adam's offering and sent a light from heaven that shone on the offering. Adam and his son drew near to the offering, but Eve and the daughter did not approach it. Adam and his son were joyful as they came down on the altar. Adam and Eve waited until the daughter was 80 days old. Then Adam prepared an offering and took it to Eve and to the children. They went to the altar where Adam offered it up, as he was accustomed, asking the Lord to accept his offering. And the Lord accepted the offering of Adam and Eve. Then Adam, Eve, and the children drew near together and came down from the mountain, rejoicing. But they returned not to the cave in which they were born, but came to the Cave of Treasures, in order that the children should go around in it and be blessed with the tokens brought from brought from the garden. But after they had been blessed with these tokens, they went back to the cave in which they were born. However, before Eve had offered up the offering, Adam had taken her and had gone with her to the river of water, in which they threw themselves at first, and there they washed themselves. Adam washed his body, and Eve hers also clean, after the suffering and distress that had come over them. So this would be called a mikvah. This is where it started. This is where the beginning of baptism basically came into play. And they would do, the women would do a mikvah after birth as well. But Adam and Eve, after washing themselves in the river of water, returned every night to the cave of treasures, where they prayed and were blessed. And then they went back to their cave, where their children were born. Adam and Eve did this until the children had been weaned. After they were weaned, Adam made an offering for the souls of his children, in addition to the 3 times every week he made an offering for them. When the children were weaned, Eve again conceived, and when her pregnancy came to term, she gave birth to another son and daughter. They named the son Abel and the daughter Achliah. Then at the end of 40 days, Adam made an offering for the son. At the end of 80 days, he made another offering for the daughter, and treated them as he had previously treated Cain and his sister Luluah. He brought them to the cave of treasures, where they received a blessing, and then returned to the cave where they were born. After these children were born, Eve stopped having children. Okay, now we come to the part about Cain and Abel. So that's enough for today. Tomorrow we will see, or probably that'll be on Monday, I'm thinking, we will see what happens to Cain and Abel and see how this lines up with what we find in Genesis. You guys have a great weekend, and let me know if you have any questions or thoughts, and I will try to respond to them. Talk to you all later. Bye.